Hi, I'm Minal Bopaiah. I am the founder of Brevity Wit, which is a strategy and design firm dedicated to designing a more equitable world. I'm also an author, and I just wrote a book called Equity: How to Design Organizations Where Everyone Thrives. Equity is really important when we're talking about creating a more fair and just world. However, it's also really misunderstood. I often joke that equity is the middle child in the DEI space, the concept we all jump over in order to get to those warm, fuzzy feelings of inclusion. And it's understandable because equity is about systems and processes and policies and things that make our head hurt. However, it's really critical that we examine our systems and structures if we really want to create equal access to opportunity, which is what equity is about. It also means that we have to start telling the truth about some things in our history and be able to come to terms with it in order to move forward and innovate in a way that really is going to benefit everyone. So what I mean by that is that we need to start to tell the truth that our founding fathers in America really designed a system that worked better for some than others, meaning white men with property. And by property, that also, women and enslaved people were referred to or thought of as property. Now, at the same time, our saving grace has been that the founding fathers enshrined values of equality, justice, liberty, the pursuit of happiness in our founding documents. And those values, our ability to evoke those values, have allowed us to iterate upon this design. America is by no means the only country that has designed for inequity. My parents hail from India, and India also has a rather complex system of oppression through the caste system. However, what we get to do now in this moment in time is use our values to redesign these systems so that they can benefit more people. And what do I mean by that? So, as I mentioned, my parents came over in 1976 from India, and they arrived with $20 in their pocket, one suitcase, and their medical degrees. Somehow, before Google, they were able to find their way out of the airport into Greenpoint, Brooklyn, where they had medical residencies waiting for them. It was a bit of culture shock. My father, who had just finished a residency in England, said that he saw more gunshot wounds in one night than he had seen in 4 years of surgical residency in England. My mother, who was pregnant with me, slept on a sleeping bag on the floor for who knows how many months. And they talked about how most of the residents that year had been mugged because people who were living with addiction had been pushed to the margins of society rather than invited into the hospital for treatment. Nevertheless, they were able to find their way out of Brooklyn to the greener suburbs of Staten Island. They were able to buy a home and an office building and build a private practice. They sent 2 children to private school and to college debt-free. My father was actually named by New York Magazine as one of their best doctors 8 times. And they also provided for their community and their family. And by all accounts, they lived that proverbial American dream. However, that's really only half the story. The story actually begins much earlier in 1965, where the Civil Rights Movement advocated for the passage of a new immigration act that would grant visas to this country based on labor needs and family ties. Before 1965, the U.S. actually had an explicit policy to preserve the homogeneity of North America, meaning to preserve the white majority in this country. After 1965, they started to grant visas based on the labor needs of the country primarily, and then as well as family relatives of immigrants who were already in this country. However, even that act of inclusion had its own inequities, meaning that the U.S. immigration system began to take advantage of socialized education in other countries. My parents came from really humble beginnings, but in India, there is a socialized education system that makes it really affordable for people to go to medical school or engineering school or get any sort of professional degree. the family lore is that it cost them about $50 a semester. And so then when we come to this country and we are called model minorities, it is actually an act of anti-Blackness and tremendous gaslighting. Because my parents' success was predicated on the fact that they had access to socialized education, they could afford to get educated, and then they were recruited to come here because of that education. And I firmly believe that if the US provided socialized education in this country, you would see just as many American-born people with dark skin and poor parents who are doctors as you do in the Indian diaspora.